In today's show, we're going to be joined by the host of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast to talk about Marc Gasol and his importance to that Memphis team after it looks like his NBA career is over. It's coming up. Stay tuned.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another episode of Locked On NBA. I am your Monday host, Josh Lloyd. I'm also the host of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, and I'm the lead analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. We're going to talk Marc Gasol, who was traded from the Lakers back to the Grizzlies, and now he's heading back to Spain. We'll talk about that with Locked On Grizzlies host Shawn Coleman. Today's show is brought to you by Rock Auto. You need parts for your car. There's no point going to a local chain auto parts store. It's going to waste your time and your money. Probably your sanity as well. You wait in the queue, wait for the bloke to tell you what parts he's got and how much he's going to charge you. Why would you spend 30, 50, 70, even 100% more for the same parts you can get at rockauto.com? Rock Auto is a family business serving online auto parts customers for the last 20 years. Whether it's brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, or even new carpet, Rock Auto has you covered for whatever part you need for your car. So, go to rockauto.com, check out their expansive website, all of the parts available for your car or truck, and then in their How Did You Hear About Us box, write Locked On, so that they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need, rockauto.com. All right, so let's bring in the host of the Locked On Grizzlies podcast. Shawn Coleman is here with me. Over the last few days, Shawn, Marc Gasol is back as a member of the Memphis Grizzlies, of course. Well, he started out with the Lakers, but traded to the Grizzlies as part of the Pau Gasol deal. Ended up in Toronto, won a championship back with the Lakers, and now as his NBA career is 100% done, 99% over, I don't think he's coming back to the NBA at all. He was traded back to Memphis. So just what were the details of that deal, first of all?
Yeah, the details were, and first off, thanks for having me as always, Josh. Hope you're well. The details were that the Grizzlies traded their 2016 second-round pick Wang Zhilin to the Los Angeles Lakers. Great value for Zhilin, by the way, and getting Marc Gasol and the 2024 second-round pick back. And I think it's pretty cool that a player likely will start his career being traded to the same, in the same way that he began his career. He started his career and ended his career the same way, being traded from the Lakers to the Grizzlies. This move was just simply for the Grizzlies to get an asset. It also was for them to have, the symbolism of getting Marc Gasol. The likely outcome from this is that they will, work out a buyout, waiving, releasing, whatever you want to call it. For Gasol to stay in Spain, there's been rumors he could join his brother on the Spanish, to play in Spain somewhere. There is a second division team in Spain that Gasol, I believe, is part owner of. He may own outright, but he may play for them. But you're correct. His NBA career is likely over. And the significance of it is that he ends his career with the Grizzlies, could lead to maybe him being here for the retirement of Tony Allen and Zach Randolph's jerseys. But overall, this should open up some doors to make it easy for the Grizzlies to fully honor him, in his legacy, obviously, with the Grizzlies.
Yeah, so I think that as well as the COVID situation, that Gasol was very displeased with what happened with the Lakers last season with the Andre Drummond scenario and him being benched and DNP'd and then brought back in and then not sure of what his role was going to be. And he was done. He's like, I'm not dealing with this. Obviously, COVID and his family. There is a report that he is going to be signing with Girona over in Spain. I don't think that's been confirmed yet, but that looks like where he could be playing for this upcoming season. But this move helps the Lakers save some money getting out of his contract, but also there's a large portion of this, or nearly all of it, because I think that second round pick from the Lakers is probably going to be nothing in the end, Shawn. It's sentimentality. It's the Grizzlies helping out the Lakers a little bit with money and getting that second round draft pick, but also just bringing Marc back onto the team as a feel-good sort of situation, and then that they work out what that buyout is and let him go back to Spain. In terms of Marc Gasol, now we just had the Basketball Hall of Fame, and I spoke earlier with John Corrales about the Basketball Hall of Fame, and we made the point to say it's not the NBA Hall of Fame, it is the Basketball Hall of Fame. And I think Marc Gasol should be an absolute lock for that, based on not only his NBA production, Defensive Player of the Year, of course, but his international you value what he's been able to do playing for Spain over the years as well. Do you think that people will probably debate that, Shawn, but there really shouldn't be any debate about his Basketball Hall of Fame credentials?
There absolutely should not be. He was a significant, and I think the thing about it is this: is that if you look at it numbers wise, I can certainly understand where he may not have the quantity of numbers, the counting numbers, the peak that you may want. But you also have to look, I think, from it from a narrative perspective. And the NBA, I think, has a bit lower threshold than other pro Hall of Fames because narrative does make sense. You've got the international perspective. You've got the fact that he was arguably the most accomplished player in the peak of a specific franchise in the NBA with the Grizzlies. He absolutely was a standout player in a small market like Memphis. And I think, Josh, also there's a narrative to be had. There is not a pair of brothers who are in the Basketball Hall of Fame due to their playing career. I think that the connection between Powell and Mark, the fact that they have been the backbone for the Grizzlies for nearly 2 decades, I think you add that to their international and NBA statistics, it's a great narrative to get both in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's a good point as well. And again, he only started in the NBA at age 24, so he's a lot of international basketball playing in Spain before that, and then of course representing the Spanish national team. Now we talk about being the best player on that peak Grizzlies team, had a conference final appearance there. Of course, he won a title as a starter in Toronto as well. That was going to be my question. Who do you think was the best player on that Grizzlies team between Mike Conley and Marc Gasol? Because they are almost inextricably linked throughout that period. I tend to agree that it probably was Gasol, and I think you lean that way too.
Correct. In terms of the natural talents that have ever played for the Grizzlies, I will go as of right now. I think that Ja Morant may be the best natural talent that's ever played for the Grizzlies in time, but when you look at natural talent with career accomplishments, I think it goes Powell and Marc Gasol. Gasol just had a higher peak as a player. Obviously, 3 All-Star games, had the All-NBA appearance, Defensive Player of the Year, as you mentioned. And he also, in what was a really cool moment for Memphis in the 2015 All-Star game, starting across from his brother, the only pair of brothers ever to start against each other in an All-Star game. So I give peak to Marc Gasol during that grit and grind era. And as of right now, until Ja Morant starts to get into his peak years, the Gasol brothers are the 2 best talents that have ever played for the Grizzlies.
Here's a question for you, Shawn, without notice. What was Marc Gasol's highest ever points per game average? Roughly.
I want to say it was his 2016-2017 season.
Correct.
And it was 16 to 17 points per game, maybe a little higher. That 16-17 season, when David Fizdale opened up his offensive game, Josh, he made more threes. He made at least 100 threes, more threes in that season. I think 10 times more threes that season than he had made in his career previously. But that 16-17 season, 17 points a game.
It was the 16-17 season that was his best season. You're right, he went over 100 threes in that season for the first time, but he actually averaged 19.5 points. He's almost at 20 points per game that year. And I wouldn't have thought that. I wouldn't have thought he was ever a 20-point per game scorer. But there you go. He was able to do those things, increasing that offensive output. He also that season averaged almost 5 assists per game. Really started to work in that be just that focal point of the offense, have the higher usage, be that more of a scorer, be a facilitator, as well as having the defensive accomplishments. And he did that at age 32, really got to his peak at that point. So quite a remarkable career when you think about it, just how good he was defensively. And then you're just adding bits and pieces to his game, like the passing and like the shooting, which developed 6, 7, 8, 9 years into his career, 10 plus, 11 plus years into his professional basketball life, just to develop those skills. Shows the way that he was able to work and sort of mold himself to the current NBA environment that he was in. So it is a little bit sad, I guess, the way that he has gone out, because I think he still had stuff to offer the NBA this season, Shawn, but I do think that the situation with the Lakers did sour him last year, along with the COVID scenario. But I think he still could have been a useful player this season.
Absolutely, and that's another reason why you hit the nail on the head. That 2016-2017 season, the reason why it stands out so vividly in my mind is that's really when the Grizzlies started to focus on offense due to David Fizdale, and that was the other evolution of Marc Gasol's career. You go from the banger at the start of his career to a guy who could facilitate the offense in limited situations. He wasn't Arvydas Sabonis, wasn't Nikola Jokic, but he was a very good passing big during the early part of the 2010s decade, and then, of course, adding the 3. So the ability for him to evolve his game as a big man, I also think gave him enough longevity to make the Hall of Fame a lock.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see, if he gets in first ballot or not. He'll get there eventually, but it is a remarkable NBA career and an absolute Grizzlies legend. Marc Gasol is done in the NBA. People need to appreciate just how good he actually was, and I'm sure there will be no Memphis fans who undersells the production and the importance that he provided to that Memphis team. Shawn, thank you for coming on and discussing Marc Gasol and his legacy across the NBA and in the history of the Memphis Grizzlies for us here on Locked On NBA.
Always a pleasure, Josh. Have a great day, sir.